Was it recording?
Okay.
All right, here we go. Oh, back in person again?
Yeah, after what, 2 weeks?
No, it was last weekend we were together.
1 week?
Yeah.
Feels like 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, we recorded last week's, and then my computer bugged out, so I couldn't post it. And then Melanie fixed it today. So yeah,
We're rocking
this
and
one will
rolling.
just be like next week's type deal. Yeah. So at least we'll be a week ahead now.
There you go.
There we
It's
go.
always good to be ahead.
Right. So we had a couple things on the palette today. We were just discussing Bob's faith journey, because we both kind of hit faith at the same time, which was pretty cool. But I feel like your journey and your maturity, maybe starting later, or I heard this at a sermon one time, spiritual maturity. And he was just like telling everybody stop being a baby, right? It was an awesome message. I mean, the dude portrayed it so well.
That's a good message.
You know what I mean? Just like, stop being a baby.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wow, that's... But like, I feel like you have, like, even for me, like, visually and the way you speak have matured so rapidly in the last 2 years that I kind of wanted to see, like, let's start from, like, let's say, what was that? Well, we dated it back to October...
Yeah, when we stayed at the Red Door.
2022, is that when that was?
That sounds about right. Right around 2 years.
Yeah, right around 2 years ago. Let's start there, and then where kind of faith entered.
Okay. So, and it's, I mean, number one, I'll start with the premise that I appreciate you saying that about the maturity, because it never feels like that, you know, in my internal dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that, I mean, if anything, that should give you a little idea of where my perspective is at. It's that it's not nearly mature enough, and that I need to spend more time and effort in the Word and pursuing the Lord every day. So if I had to guess, I would say what you're seeing is a byproduct of that. But yeah, it did. And it also, like, I grew up in the church a little bit, you know, when I was younger. And I went to some, like, private Christian schools and stuff like that. So even though maybe my heart might not have been in it like it should have been, like, it still gave me a pretty good foundation of, like, at least scripture in general, just, you know, Bible memorization and stuff like that. Like, I grew up in the environment where you did, like, sword drills and stuff like that, where everybody's, like, looking up Bible verses as fast as they can and stuff. So it was kind of like scripture memorization was gamified like that. So it's a really good learning environment. Mm-hmm. And that kind of stuff, as you know, the Word is like life for your spiritual journey.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff can be very powerful when, you know, for me anyways, later on when I decided to start pursuing the Lord wholeheartedly, it was definitely good to have, you know, ammunition like that.
Was your mom or dad or step-parents ever, like, you ever, like, walk into them reading the Bible, or did they ever talk to you about it, like, growing up as a kid?
Yeah, growing up, the spiritual influence definitely came from my mom. It was very authoritarian style of the religion side of things in our household. Kind of like follow the rules or else.
Oh,
so,
okay.
and I
almost like a Catholic type.
Kind of, yeah. And I think that's kind of what. I mean, I don't know if this is the case for most people or not, but for me personally, I think it was kind of what caused me to shy away from following the Lord. And I don't know that for certain, because it's tough to remember back, and everything that you do remember is colored or skewed in some way, shape, or form by your emotions at the time. Mm-hmm. So when I think about not necessarily what drew me back into following the Lord, but when I did make the decision, the part that made it easy for me to pursue the Lord was all the different ways in which he shows us love and grace, and that's why I'm kind of connecting the dots with, like, okay, essentially maybe the reason why I ran away from it at a younger age was because I saw more of the stick side than the carrot side.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it just kind of gave me a propensity to walk towards something else, or
Yeah.
if
I
that
also
makes
feel
sense.
like when you're young, it's like whatever you're told to do, you have an innate instinct. You're like, I'm not gonna do that because you literally told. I mean, you see with the 3-year-old
Yep.
nieces and nephews upstairs, like it's whatever you say, they're gonna literally do the opposite just because.
Absolutely. That's definitely a factor, and I try to when I'm remembering back to my younger years, I try to keep in mind that there is all these like childish emotions or feelings that are coursing through your little body at that point in time that have a big impact on everything. Like, if you tried to tell me that even today I had a problem with authority, I would believe you. So I can appreciate how at a young age that could have been more intensified.
Right.
But so long story short, I do feel like that foundation is very helpful for me today as I pursue the Lord, and it's I don't know like what specific outline to go through or anything like that, but I can tell you, like, in the last 2 years, just the way my life and our business is structured, the summer times are super busy for me. So my walk with the Lord is not seasonal, but the amount of time I invest in it kind of is. Like, I still go to church in the summer, and I still read the Word and pray in the summer, but it's nowhere near as close to, like, all winter long. When the weather's nasty outside, I get up early every morning and read the Bible and pray for an hour or two, and I invest a lot of time into it in the winter time. And that's where I personally experience most of my growth, or feel like I do anyways. But it also plays out in the summertime too. Like, if I'm outside weed eating or whatever, I've got the Bible podcast on my, AirPods or something like that, and that's also been extremely helpful for me. I've had a lot of spiritual breakthroughs or relational breakthroughs with Jesus through that time. That's something I have noticed, is that hard work, physical hard work, helps me a lot with anything, podcasts, you name it, but especially if you apply that to, and we've talked about it before too, it's just kind of like an ADD thing, but when I applied it to using like physical labor as a time to, not necessarily pray, but just have my heart postured towards the Lord and be learning about things. Like, one of my favorite things, and I'm sure we've talked about it, is the Sermon on the Mount. And it's just like, there's an infinite number of hours you could spend just dissecting that and what all of the lessons there are to be learned in that. And for me, I just found like the combination of a really intriguing topic like that and like working hard led to some emotional breakthroughs, or like situations where I was able to open my heart up in ways that I don't think I might have been able to if I was in somewhere comfortable, or if I was, just living life in my like casual time, or like, I don't know if that makes sense or not. But.
Yeah. And I wanted to point out, like, the Bible Project, when you introduced me to that, I didn't dive into it right away. I've more of the last few months have dove into it, and I'm nowhere near sponsored or have any communication with them at all, but I will 100% encourage everybody and anybody who is, for one, struggles with time with the Lord, like myself. Like, I don't have a lot of extra time to dive in, but I have a 25-minute commute.
Right.
So if you can throw on something and learn about the Bible a little bit, it's been incredibly helpful for me.
Yeah.
Also, reading the Word, they have the visual and the breakdowns, like the general overview. It gives you at least a place to start, and have a general knowledge of what's going into it. So I've recommended it to anybody who wants to talk about the Bible. Like, that's where I start. It's like, you need to listen to this guy. Like, these guys are amazing.
Yeah.
So put that out there first. But yeah.
That was a huge game changer for me too. Yeah.
And it's totally changed my perspective on so many different ways. And I've only, listened to 10 of their episodes in one section.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't even imagine how much knowledge these guys actually have.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just down to, like, the very foundational facts of the culture at the time. Not everybody was reading the Word every day. Like, they would sit together in small groups, and
people had to memorize it.
Yeah, literally. You had to memorize it. And the rich guy that had it would just go outside and read it to people.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's so community-based, and I feel like that's where we need to be at anyways.
Yeah. Dude, and that's, side caveat, that is, like, one of the, because I'm the type of person who, when I make up my mind that I want to pursue something, I consciously and subconsciously, I will start to trick myself into, like, not necessarily making it my number one priority because I've already made that decision, but I'll leverage anything I can. Like, oh, I know I love to learn about things, so I would just put on, like, the Bible Project has these super fascinating, like, drawing / seminar teaching videos that they do, where it's like super neat illustrations that are outlining whole chapters of the Bible or whole books of the Bible. So you get this really cool video and audio breakdown of, like, a book of the Bible, and I just would use those to get myself, like, interested in learning about the Bible again and back into it, and kind of, like, renewing my passion in it because they were just so visually stimulating, and I found them as a really neat tool to...
Yeah, and I think that brings up a great point. Anybody who's spiritually invested, they felt that desire go away. And, like, that's like we're talking about, keeping yourself invested and disciplined in doing these things. Because, I mean, it gets kind of monotonous and boring at times, which is what people don't talk about, because it's like, if you're a Christian, you don't want to talk about it.
It's not glamorous.
It's like, because you internally you feel like, I need to be invested. Why don't I have this burning desire to just burn through this book and read the whole thing and have this in-depth understanding?
What a great way to loop into what we were talking about yesterday and about consistency.
Oh, man.
Like, how that's always the hardest thing to do, but it's where the results come from.
Right.
And it's, because we all go through those weeks and weeks of...
We'll take a quick pause here. Oh, we had some unwanted guests there for a second.
Anyways, yeah, so I was saying, we all go through, like, phases or periods of life where it's like all this time goes by and you feel like you're investing or being consistent, and you start to feel frustrated. At least this is for me anyways. I started to feel like frustrated or just, like, really disappointed, and it just kind of leads into, like, this shame spiral of why I don't feel connected with the Lord when I'm, like, really trying to and pursuing it. But that's always where the breakthroughs come from, is when you get over these hurdles of your frustration and all this kind of stuff. And without the consistency throughout it, it's like you would never achieve those breakthroughs. And it's usually what I've found is that after I go through a season like that, God typically makes it pretty clear, like, oh, this is what I was having you work on during that time. Or like things can just click into place, like, oh, okay, now I understand why I was feeling that frustration, or like why I had to go through that typical thing. I mean, even all the way, if you extrapolate out to, like, your whole life picture, like, you can start to see, periods of your life that you went through that you just think were like, oh man, that was terrible, or like, why did I have to live through that? Or like, why did I have to feel that as a kid or whatever? And it's like, oh, okay, well, now I can see how God's using that in me today, or how,
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way is just to zoom out.
Yeah.
And I can remember the very first time I did it, and it was just like, wow, this makes so much sense. Like, if I, there's a lot of pivotal points in your life, even for me at 22. Like, if I would have made this decision and went here,
right,
that could have been a really bad
whole different life,
right? Or if I made, a year later, I made this decision here, like the decision between two colleges.
Yeah.
That decision that I made, I don't think it would have led me to the man that brought me to God and to Christianity, and like,
right,
you know what I mean? Like, I would have chosen this. Went to a whole different state.
Yeah.
There's no way I would have ever seen this guy.
Your life could be very different.
Yeah, it's just like when you zoom out that far, it's like how this path got me to here and how it led me right into God.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
once you zoom out like that, it really opens your eyes, or it really starts to show you how feeble-minded we are. No matter how intelligent you think you are, God is operating on a level we can't even understand, and his ability to map out all of our lives and how they intersect with each other and with other people, and how he's going to leverage all the terrible things we've done for good later. And it's like his ability to redeem and recover us from any situation we can't even understand at the time, especially not when we're going through it and feeling the things, living through it.
I think you hit that right on the head there with we don't even have the understanding. It's like we were talking about yesterday with week to week. It's like during the week, you're pretty much head down, nose down. You're just grinding each day. You're just grinding in and out,
yep.
Doing your thing every single day. And then all of a sudden you get that one day a week or one day a month where you can sit back and reflect of like, where is my life going?
Right.
What is my actions pursuing? Like, because sometimes you just making the decision and going. Like,
yeah.
You got to make that decision of am I going to get better or worse in like a split second most days. But once you have that second to reflect, it's like, okay, what have I consistently chosen, and what is that saying about who I am, the direction of my life?
Yeah. And do I like that direction or not?
Yes.
Do I need to change that or not?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That kind of reflection is important, both in...
But if we had the capacity to be able to look at the reflection
right.
and be in the same, like, you just can't do that.
Right.
That's not possible to be 100% engaged in the moment. And
also zoomed out.
We're zoomed out.
Yeah,
like, we cannot, as human beings, physically do that.
Right.
Which is a clear distinction between us and God.
Yeah.
Or the spiritual realm. I don't know if they can do it.
We're made in his image, not in his capacity. Or like in the ability to perform as good as he does.
Sometimes I wish I could. But
that could be handy for certain things.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's I think that that reflection or that zoom out time, like you called it, is important for your spiritual journey, also just for life in general, man. Like, it's like your job, your whatever it is you're pursuing. I think it's really good to not necessarily even as far as like big things like, do I need to totally change directions here or not? But it's also like, okay, well, could I just be doing this more efficiently? Could I be getting there faster?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very helpful.
Well, here's my question. How often do you have that reflection time or that zoom out time of what am I doing day to day, week to week?
I probably get that stuff pretty regularly, like several times a week.
Oh, okay.
I'm just, the way my job is, I spend a lot of time either driving or painting or weed eating or just doing things like that where I can let my mind go go into those reflection places, and I definitely think that that's been an asset for me. And I try to leverage it as much as I possibly can. It is, don't get me wrong, it's really easy for me, and I do it probably once a month when my Spotify hours reset and I get my 15 hours back. I'll listen to an audiobook that's just for fun, But the majority of the time that I have time like that, it's spent learning, whether it's about business, real estate, the Lord, you name it. It's
Right.
it's definitely self-development time for me. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes that's just reflection, and sometimes it's just actual learning, like listening to things that are going to be beneficial for me or help me, educate my clients better, or
Yeah.
personal development, you name it.
Because I struggle, because like my day to day, I'm pretty much got to be dialed, like 100% focus of
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing right now. For like at least my job is 8 hours, and then I coach for 2.5 hours after that. So like 11 out of my 16 waking hours is I got to be focused on the task that I'm in. So typically, and in the morning, I'm focused on my workout and my morning routine.
Yeah.
And so it only leaves me my 20 minutes on the way to work, which is normally preparation for the day,
Right.
or learning something. I always got a podcast on or a book or whatever I'm invested in at the moment. 25 minutes at home on my way home. And then I'm pretty much washed after that time, though. Like, I don't have the energy.
There's only so many hours a day when your brain will actually be fruitful
Yeah.
to apply it to
Yeah.
these things.
At past that point, even on my drive home when I'm learning, if it's not super fun and interactive, like, I'm not going to retain it.
Right.
It's got to be engaging.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm learning. But you can kind of tailor your life to these things. Like, I can listen to an audiobook that's like my audiobook right now is about confidence, right? For like if I'm training a kid in basketball, like what's the confidence advice I can give this guy? And then on the way home, I'm listening to a podcast or about the world, because that's like super interesting to me, of like what's going on in politics, and listen to two guys joke around on the podcast. Like that's engaging, and it makes my drive go by really fast.
Yep.
But yep. So I only get that, like, and even my weekends, like I'll have some time to like relax or like recover, but still I'm like writing my own curriculum on the weekends, so it doesn't leave a lot of time. It's hard for me to like zoom out when I'm still here, but like when I get away from the house or I go somewhere, even if it's just like with Morgan, we went to town, we were able to just talk and talk about our lives and where we're going. That's like just driving to Spokane, which is an hour away, but especially like when I go see you on the west side, I'm able to like definitely like.
Dude, that's when I leave town. For me, that's also when I'm like fully able to, I would say more so like relax, like,
and leave that life behind.
Step out of all my roles and responsibilities that I have and just kind of be me. And sometimes I'll, like, if we go on vacation or something like that, I'll use that as time for more growth of something that I haven't, been pursuing or wanted to. But also sometimes I'll use that time as just like a time to not be stressed out about all the things I need to do, and that's
a lot of my vacations too. Like, I have this idea of like, I need to read this book, like this. I think this would help my life if I read this book. But then I get there and I just start like reflecting my life, and it like takes a day and a half, and then my vacation's over. It's just like, wow, they're like this is how my life's structured, this is where it's going. Okay, here's how I tweak it to make it more efficient, to benefit my goals, but also my longevity,
right,
and my happiness.
Because you don't, you got to allow yourself to be present and have a good time, or have fun, or blow off steam. Otherwise, it's, and I was thinking about this the other day too. All these old colloquialisms, or whatever you want to call them, that we grew up with, like all work and no play makes Bobby a sad boy or a dull boy, like things like that. It's like there's all these old sayings and stuff like that. There's wisdom to be had in them.
Absolutely.
It's like people in generations before us, I feel like we've talked about this before, but like maybe they didn't open up as much about stuff, with their neighbors and their work colleagues and stuff like that. But they also had, like, in society, these little hidden gems of wisdom that they all shared with each other, that like, and it was almost more like speaking how Jesus spoke, like in parables, kind of like make you think about it a little bit, and make you dwell on it.
That's one thing I was was about 2 weeks ago probably. I had back to back. I went to a bingo and I was sitting alone, and this old couple came up to me and we talked about the world and what's going on, and like had this great, and there's just like a wealth of wisdom. And then like I had a basketball game the 2 days later, and I'm walking in the gym, and this old guy that's at every single game watching his granddaughter, he walks up to me and he's like, "Well, how's it going?" I was like, "Oh, it's okay. I was kind of having a rough day at school that day, and I was trying to switch into basketball mode." And he's like, "What did he say?" I can't remember exactly what he said, but he's just like, "Yeah, no sense complaining. It's just adding to the noise." You know what I mean? And just like these guys will just drop these bombs of wisdom out of nowhere, and then like it literally like I could feel the shockwaves of it. I'm like, dude, just spoke to my soul. Like, what am I complaining about, man? I mean, this world I live in is so freaking awesome. Like, am I really complaining right now?
Yeah.
It's like, because like even like you can feel it in someone's tone of voice.
Yeah.
Of what they mean and how they actually are. Whether they said I did great today, but if they said I did great, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that guy had a rough day. You know what I mean? But
that is something I struggle with, but it is like an underlying theme of my heart that I've been trying to pursue is like not necessarily just joy. That's one of them, but like positivity. Like I try to like always have the mindset of like it could be worse. Like it could always be worse. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's tough to get outside of your emotions sometimes when you're going through life and you feel like you're getting kicked in the chest nonstop, and it's like it's hard to stop feeling that and be happy. You know what I mean? But it is important, and it's something I've been working on too.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's really hard because again, it comes back to we don't have the capacity, right? Like we can hear about these people that are living these lives, and it really doesn't mean much to us because we can't. I mean, we can imagine ourselves in them shoes and what it would be like, but you don't really know.
Right.
You don't know the emotions this guy's feeling or the pain this guy has in his back, you
Right.
know, from freaking digging holes all day because to put barely enough food, not even enough, 2 meals on the, not even 3 meals, right, for his kids.
Yeah.
And he probably doesn't even eat half the time.
Yep.
Like, I mean, you can imagine it, but
you can't feel it.
you have no freaking idea, dude. Like, not a clue. You don't have a clue.
Yeah.
Which is hard to even.
That's why I believe empathy is such a powerful tool for not just for helping other people, but for helping yourself too. If you can focus on developing the ability to put yourself in other people's shoes or walk a mile in their shoes, obviously you'll never really get the real experience, but I do believe the more mental time and energy you invest into it, it will be a skill that you can improve upon. I think it will help you connect with other people, but also help myself, maintain the proper perspective when I'm going through life. Like, seek out that positivity by focusing on, like, okay, well, yeah, life could be like that, and it could,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough, because you're right though. You'll never be able to truly know what it's like to live that person's life.
Yeah, and I think empathy is, even if you just work on using that visualization of being in their shoes, I think it's humbling.
Right.
Which is very biblical and,
Right.
and it feels right. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you look for someone and if they're cocky, you're kind of just like, even if you're not spiritually at all, it's like, okay, I don't want to be around a cocky dude. Like, nobody wants that. So, like, practicing empathy, even on a day-to-day or weekly basis, I think it's very humbling.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you tried to, like, create an outline or a bullet point list of, like, the ideal person you would want to be around, things like, you would include this list of all of these great attributes, like this person is going to be smart and strong and hardworking and talented and intelligent and all these things. But also, one of the most important things would be, but they're humble and approachable and easy to talk to, and they're not like high and mighty, and it's so it's like, well, that's something that I think a human being has to really work at to maintain it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so where were we at? We just went on a big tangent right there for a minute.
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, that's like 90% of our conversations. I'm so glad we got to be in person because,
Yeah,
man,
that's definitely the way to go.
video calls are tough, dude. Tough. But I had a question that sprung up earlier that I just popped back in. Is it okay? You know how you're talking about your life is kind of structured within seasons.
Right.
Obviously, Christianity is not seasonal. Like it's always in you, but the time you have to invest in it is more at times. And you were talking about the winters.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
That's a really good question.
That's a tough one. It's one I struggle with.
Yeah, I like to think. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to speak for God.
Yeah.
But I feel like I feel like He's made it very clear to me, in my infantile thought processes sometimes, that He has the ability to see the whole picture and understand my heart. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's the most important thing. One of the things I always dwell on is, like, my heart posture. Where is my heart posture at? If I don't get to spend 2 hours every morning in the summertime in the Word and praying and stuff like that, like I can in the wintertime, I like to believe that a God who is as faithful and just and forgiving as ours sees that while I'm not doing that thing that I do in the wintertime, I'm also out there grinding really hard, trying to build the kingdom for my family and for future generations, and to be able to bless other people in the future. You know what I mean? I feel like if my heart is in the right place, that's what matters. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong on that,
You're
but
right. And this comes back to the wrestling we've been talking about for
100%.
I mean, this is like week 3 of us talking about the wrestling.
Because we're never going to be perfect.
Right.
We're never going to do it perfect.
And like I'm trying to think of what's that parable where he has the 3 men that says, "Here's this amount of money."
Oh, the talents. He gives them all talents and sees what they do with them.
No, it's like they give the same amount to 3 different guys. One guy goes and doubles it. One guy goes and makes half of it, and one guy buries it and then brings it back a month later. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "I said to go use this," right? Like I feel like that's more so inclined with our time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because
that's a good way to look at it.
Like, I'm not making a lot of money right now, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm spending so much time building foundations so that I can grow. Mm-hmm.
And you're pouring your heart and soul into it.
Into my career and for, the kingdom of God. And, that's what I'm investing in. And, we've talked about your grind period of your life. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't speak for you, but it doesn't seem like you were as invested or spiritually connected at the time.
Well, absolutely not. And it's like, I was talking right now about it being seasonal. Like, well, back then it wasn't any season. It was just all work, nothing else. Like, that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No other priorities.
Yeah.
Like, even family life suffered because I just prioritized everything, work over everything else. So, and that's also another thing I try to keep in mind too. It's like, okay, even if like during the summers I can't be as faithful as I would like to be in the amount of time I dedicate to it, I'm also looking at it as this is still a lot of progress from where I was.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe the big guy takes that into consideration too. I don't know.
Yeah. I think he's using this in so many different ways.
Right.
That it's like
right.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't even know half the time. I'm like, I hope I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I hear you there.
A lot of it goes by feeling too. Like, how does this feel? Like, I don't know. Am I like struggling and enjoying the struggle? If that makes sense. Like, if I'm enjoying the struggle, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm kind of like supposed to be doing this.
Yeah, dude, that is a really good point because it's like, man, some of the hardest work I've ever done. It's also some of the most fun I've ever
Yeah.
had. Like really, you do hard things with good people. I mean,
Yeah.
that's fellowship right there.
Yeah.
That's a good time.
Yeah. I just always think about the times when we would go out to the farm and just build fence.
Dig
Like,
fence posts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like this freaking sucks, but it's awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like people look at me crazy. It's like one of my least favorite things about going up to Alaska and fishing is I don't get to go help the farmers and do hay.
Right.
Dude, it's freaking like 100 degrees outside and you're lifting up 40-pound bales all day.
Yeah.
It's freaking awesome. It sucks.
Yep.
You know, and you get super dehydrated and it's really not, you know, but it's freaking awesome, right? And
Yeah.
you feel so good at the end of the day.
It is how would I describe it? It's like a soul cleansing experience.
Man.
For sure, dude.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
if you're doing hard work like that with the right people, it just refreshes you
Yeah,
in ways that you
the right people is, you know, huge and super key.
Mhm.
Because the most enjoyable job in the world is going to suck if you don't have the right people around you.
Right.
I mean, this circles us right back into when we were talking yesterday of choosing your 5 friends.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's a real thing. Yeah, I've can't tell you how many successful quote unquote people I've listened to over the years, and almost all of them will give you some piece of advice that has something to do with the people that you surround yourself with. And that many people who have had that many good results at achieving their goals or their dreams, reiterating something over and over again like that, is typically a pretty good indicator that there's some really good truth in there or some really good logic behind it. So, and it's like I was telling you, like there was this event in my life at one point in time where at the time I kind of like I felt terrible, but I had a friend that I like kind of lashed out at. I was obviously much younger, but I kind of snapped on him and I said, like, why are you always trying to get me to do things the easy way? And it didn't really, like the gravity of that back then didn't really hit me, but looking back on it now, I can see what an influential point in my life that was, because had that person continued to stay extremely close to me, I would be nowhere near where I'm at today.
Mhm.
And it just because of, you know, the power that someone's influence has on you, just being in your close proximity on a regular basis.
Mhm.
I mean, people have vibes or whatever you want to call it, and they also
Yeah.
have thought processes that are engraved into their brain, and part of that's going to rub off on you. So I don't have a perfect answer for you on like you have to cut out everybody that slows you down, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because that's not necessarily the right answer either.
Yeah, because you're kind of like build a community too,
Yeah.
right? Like you want to be inviting
Yeah.
and accepting to all. Like, I mean, that's
Everything that I look at that, like, I see Jesus' posture towards kingdom building and community building. It's all about people and loving other humans and stuff like that. So you definitely can't just go around like, well, you're not advancing me towards my goal, so I'm not going to talk to you. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the right mentality to have. But
absolutely.
But you also, you gotta protect your spirit and your work ethic and your goals and your ambitions, and you gotta surround yourself with good people that are beneficial to those. I mean, it's definitely really critical
Mm-hmm.
to at least cut out some real bad influences.
And that's like how I was telling you yesterday, how my circle is super tight. Like, I don't spend a lot of time outside of family,
Mhm.
but like our family is very successful. So
Right.
like just being around you, like there's that pressure of like, let's go. Like, you know, every time we get together, it's like, man, I got to freaking grind, man. Like that's always, but then I think about, I went to one of our neighbors' birthday party the other day, and I'm sitting there around the campfire, and I'm looking at, he's a vet, like very successful business owner,
Mhm.
vet of like most people around us, and his friend group you know, they're all extremely successful people. I'm like, man, like this guy invited me over, but I am way out of place here, man. Like I got along, you know, that is so motivating to me to be able to just be around somebody like you, like to be in the shoes of like I'm not supposed to be here right now, but but you are.
Right.
But it's just like I got a long ways to go, man. Long ways to go.
And that's one thing you got to remember is that that's perfectly fine because you're really young.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we got a lot of time to use as long as you use it right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, but yeah.
That's what, like I think I've told you this before, but a good piece of advice my dad gave me when I was younger, when my head would be spinning out like, oh, I need to accomplish all these things. Like, yeah, you got a lot of life left to do it in. Like, if you focus on, setting your goals and objectives in place and then being present while you achieve them, number one, being present in that is how you find opportunity. Like at that party when you're making connections and talking with people and just being present and having a good time. Like, you could have sat in the corner and dwelt on the fact that you're surrounded by people of really high caliber who have achieved more than you have in life so far. Or you can get in there and chop it up with all of them and make relationships and build connections. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so there's that balance of, I got these big ambitions and goals and directives, and that's, that is a lot of pressure, but it's important to not let it spin your wheels out so much that you miss the opportunities that are in front of you. Because you also have to be present enough that you become skilled enough and adept enough at whatever it is that you're doing, that when you get to that position in life, you have the capability to add value to everyone else around you because of that experience that you were present for and lived through. Mm-hmm. So it's a big, you'll have the opportunity to take that full circle in the future.
Yeah.
You got a few more years under your belt, you'll be able to share that right back with people who are spinning their wheels at the time, worried about getting to where they need to go. You know what I mean? That's
absolutely. Yeah.
And that is something that only comes from, and this is somebody who's in their 30s telling you this, so keep in mind, I'll probably change, learn more about it later, but I am starting to see this big pattern of the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And that kind of like allows a little bit of temperance to come into your life as you're going, and you start to be like, I don't have control over this whole thing. I've only got control over so much, my time, my relationships, what I invest my energy in, what I allow into my brain and my heart on a regular basis, and to shape who I am and who I'm going to be with everybody that's important to me. And if I just kind of focus on those things I can't control, then it's really not, I shouldn't be getting so worked up about everything else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Kind of just keep your household in order, so to speak, and you can rest easy a little bit sometimes.
And I feel like society and people as a whole respect that.
Yeah.
Like, man, this guy is doing the right thing consistently, and if you are in his circle or you're not, but if you are, like, I can count on this guy. Like, having that kind of consistency about yourself and your life, that someone say, I can count on this guy. Like, if I told him to be here or can you do this for me, like, he's going to do it no matter what. Like, it's going to get done. Which is super cool.
That's also, we've talked a lot about vibes. I would really love to learn the science behind that, but it's that is like literally you can meet people like brand new relationships and you can feel that in them. There's just a confidence about them that you don't have to, what they set their mind to gets done.
You connect with people.
Yeah.
And I just had this experience with someone recently, but it's like you're in the moment, right? But you feel this weird energy in the room, and you're like batting around it, but you're in the moment, so you're trying to like create conversation and do all these things, and then you get back in your car and like you're like, what the hell just happened? What was that? It's like, because it goes both ways. You have those great people that you just hit it off the head with, and it's like, okay, we're doing to be great friends. But then there's others, it's like, wow, I do
Yeah.
not want to do that again. Oh gosh, but
Yeah, but that's, I mean, from my personal experience, you just outlined the way I teach myself everything. I just go do it, and I learn what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Like that's the.
and trust your feeling though. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like trust that gut feeling.
Yeah.
And like validate that energy in the room was real.
Yeah.
Like however that connection was that you were hitting with that person, and that can change with how comfortable you are with somebody too. But
Yeah, for sure. That's a big thing to remember too. It's like there's more than just 8 people on the entire planet.
Yeah.
Like you're not. You walk into one room somewhere, and that's not the last humans you're ever going to encounter. So,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you always still need to be nice and pleasant and living out the values that you're trying to represent. But you also don't have to like drop everything and follow those people for the rest of your life. So it's important to keep that stuff in mind.
Yeah.
It's tricky sometimes too. Yeah, you walk in a situation, you're like, oh, I feel like I shouldn't have been there. You know?
Human relations, man, it's a mystery.
Oh yeah, dude, we are a fascinating animal for sure.
Man, wouldn't it be cool to be God? Just sit back and watch
Right?
these little
Observe all these.
5 to 6 foot beings run around and build giant cities.
And think that they know it all.
I would just laugh. It's like watching a 8-year-old. You know what I mean? Like looking
Right.
like this kid doesn't know literally anything.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that's that temperance that you get from experience that is just like, oh man, I really knew like a year ago, didn't know nothing. Like I'm sure a year's gonna go by, I'm gonna say the same thing as the year before. Like it's just you start
there's
to
so much knowledge that gets hit every year.
right. You start to observe.
Especially
a
if you're
trend.
paying attention.
Yeah.
If you're not paying attention though, it can go by. So
Well, that's I mean, a big part of our society or culture or whatever you want to call it is just designed around capturing your attention, and because that is a valuable commodity. You know what I mean? Because you could be using that for yourself to change the world however you saw fit. Like build your empire, build your community, influence your friends, do all this positive stuff in the world. Or you can sit there and consume content on YouTube for 9 hours a day or whatever. You know
And,
what I
you
mean?
know,
Like it's easy to do.
And I'm just gonna say this because Morgan, she's one of the most inspirational people in my life. You know what her day to day is so unbelievable. You know, and I poured my heart out to her the other day because it's been like this constant thing nagging at the back of my brain. Like you got to tell this freaking person, like, because I see her as a freaking monster, and nobody else in the world even knows. Right? She lives in the shadows,
Right.
But she's just an absolute gangster, man. Like, just grinding every single day. And I was like, dude, like, show the world. Like, we talk about how America's fat. Like, how America is so unhealthy. Like, they're not paying attention to what they're eating. They're not exercising. And she gets super upset and passionate about this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Morgan, make a difference. Right? And so she's like, hey, of course, she comes up with another freaking challenge to do. She's like, let's work out 31 days or 30 minutes, 3 in January, all 31 days, no rest days. I'm like, of course. I was like, we'll bet. And the first day I posted and tagged her and said, you have to repost this and you have to post every day. That's because like, if you want to make a change, man, and I was telling her like,
Be the change.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so if you don't want American to be fat, quit sitting back and complaining to me about it. I can't do nothing about it, right? Start posting a little bit, you know. All of a sudden you have a community involved, right? You have the whole Davenport involved, right? All of a sudden somebody with money moves into town. Bang, you got a gym built. Wow, all of Davenport's. And then all of a sudden we look like Coeur d'Alene.
Right.
Right? And then that expands out. Now Washington's healthy. Now, you know, then Oregon's healthy. And then it's like this trend of fitness is going around the world. That's the same thing with Christianity or whatever you're trying to,
Whatever you're pursuing.
whatever you're passionate about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, if you want to do something, like make a change, man. Like we got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I'm all about that, man.
Yeah.
We've talked before about like taking some action is the best thing you can do. It might not be the best possible action, but even if it's just little, start small. Just do it.
Yeah.
You'll learn. You'll adapt. You'll improve. It will get the momentum going. That's what you need for anything to be accomplished. You need progress and momentum.
Yeah.
You just got to get that ball rolling.
I mean, same thing that we've been doing. We were just talking about how the country is fed up with all the bull crap that's going on in the world. And it's like really like 60% of the landslide of the election was like clear that like the world is kind of like fed up with this crap.
Like put their foot down, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, but why do we wait freaking 10 years?
Yeah, why does it take...
I mean, I was 12, but you... No, I was kidding.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but you have no excuse, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's like, why does it take good people so long to just speak what they know is right? And that's... I've talked with my buddy, one of my old military buddies that I go to, like, gun camp with and stuff, and I've talked to him about this, too. It's like, it used to be that we were raised to just do what's right no matter what. Not just even when it's hard, but especially when it's hard.
Yeah.
Because that is when it is most important for you to make the right decision, is when it's hard. That is when it's going to have, and you don't ever really know this until afterwards when you're reflecting, but you'll be able to see, like, when it was really hard for me to make that choice, that was the one that had the most impact on my life. The most positive, beneficial, downstream impacts on my life was that really hard choice to make. Quitting nicotine, whatever that looks like, whatever those really tough choices are for everybody in their own journey, those are the ones that have the most impact. And it's the same for all of us in the country as a whole. And I've just noticed a trend of, it's like, okay, we don't necessarily, as a society or as a culture, put out there, like, do the right thing. It's do what's either convenient or feels good
or the most efficient or the easy way.
And I noticed, like, from my personal perspective, I noticed a trend shifting towards, from when I was younger, towards what feels good. Like, when I was a little kid, I remember life was never about your feelings or what felt good. It was about doing what was right. And as I grew up, I noticed, like, the culture, or what I saw in the world was like, I'm living my truth, or I'm, doing whatever, feels great. Like
this free spirit or something. Crap.
Yeah, like, I'm taking a gap year so I can just enjoy it. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with traveling, but I will tell you, if you live your life in pursuit of feeling good, it will leave you empty-handed at the end of the day. Like, the big shift, I can tell you, for myself in success was when I began to choose my difficulties, when I would choose my hard stuff. So, like, you start out on your journey in the world, in the workforce, whatever you want to call it, and you've got everyday financial struggles because you're broke, you have no money, and you're, like, trying to figure things out, and it's like, oh, my freaking car needs an oil change, so it's like I go do that. Like, you are reactive in nature, and you deal with the hard that comes your way. But something shifts when you begin to have your own goals and objectives. It's like you're a boat that is just floating, and rocks are hitting you and that kind of stuff. But then it shifts when you put a motor on your boat and you start going in a direction, it becomes easier to navigate through life's obstacles.
Right.
It's just something about being in forward motion that gives you the ability to see these things coming. You start to, plan ahead. You start to save some money. But until you get, like, that goal or that dream or that objective that gets you to, like, start making forward progress, you're just dead in the water, and you're just, like, taking what comes at you.
Yeah, we talked about this a lot in school because it's, like, part of our leadership curriculum. One of the big key points is being proactive.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing in the way you think. Like, if you're thinking about next month already, like, I always think financially a month ahead. Like, I'm not worried about December.
Right.
Right. I'm planning January. Like what? Like I already planned. On October 31st, I planned. I've already finished November, and I'm thinking about what's going on in December. What's coming at me next the month? And when you can see in front of you that far, and then all of a sudden you get really good at the world, and I'm looking at what's happening in March, and then what's happening next year.
Yeah, and I will say, your generation has it even tougher than my generation did, because debit cards were new when I was starting out. Like, everything that's designed for your convenience comes at a cost. I remember the first paychecks I earned, I would cash them all. And I would just get my cash for that 2-week period. And that would go into my envelopes that I had that, like, this is how much money I have for gas for this period of time. Like, there wasn't any, like, all digital, just deposit it, so I had a, different financial foundation.
Yeah, because you have that physical sense of this is really what I got.
Yeah.
It's not just a number on a screen.
You looked at your little stinky stack of envelopes, and you said, "Man, I just worked like 60 hours that one week and 75 hours the next week for this little stack of envelopes right here. This is what it got me that whole 2 weeks. So I'm gonna be freaking careful with it."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like the design or the shift of the country has kind of swayed that way.
Oh yeah.
Into making individuals and human beings softer.
100%. And if you wanted to make the argument to me that it was intentional, I would listen.
I would believe it. I mean, what's gonna make you the most receptive? You know what I mean? Like, how can I brainwash someone into following me, into paying this money that I can shave millions off the top and make it easy? Like that makes total sense for me with someone with no moral value.
Right.
Or that their goals are more important than being a civil and ethical human being.
If all they cared about was making as much money as possible, yes, you would want a large population of compliant, soft people who would never tell you no, who would never speak up when you did something wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just imagine it.
Yeah. Well, I think that was pretty solid.
That's a solid landing right there.
I think so. Not really. We kind of went all over the place, but that's another day in the office for us, huh?
Yeah,
that's
worked out
how
good.
Our conversations go. But all right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. See ya.